You're listening to Fusion Patrol, a listener-supported podcast. Each week, we take a single episode of a science fiction TV series, movie, or audio and overanalyze it to within an inch of its life. Welcome to the discussion.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fusion Patrol. I'm Eugene.
And I'm Ben.
And it's World Beyond Movie Night, and we'll be looking at the 1971 Irwin Allen extravaganza, City Beneath the Sea. Also, for our UK listeners, known as 1 Hour to Doomsday, when it was released theatrically over there. Although at any point, is it 1 hour till Doomsday? I guess at some point it does pass 1 hour to Doomsday.
Yeah.
So the name is technically accurate.
At one point.
All right. Yeah. Synopsis. It is the year 2053, and retired Admiral Matthews is a successful engineer working out of New York. But the president calls him and gives him no opportunity to refuse reactivation and a return to his former post of commander of Pacifica, a city beneath the ocean. Matthews resigned 8 months ago after some incident and is not happy about the reassignment. Neither is Commander Woody Patterson. Patterson was Matthews' second in command and now commander of Pacifica. There is animosity between them already, and now Patterson is being demoted back to second in command. Matthews is one of the two designers of Pacifica, and that's why he needs to be in charge. But that's all the president will tell him. Sealed orders will arrive with more details. Matthews is not warmly welcomed upon his return. It seems that his longtime best friend, Bob Holmes, and co-creator of Pacifica, died in an accident, and many of the people of Pacifica blame Matthews for sending him to his death. People say he did it out of jealousy. Matthews knows he did the right thing, but the death weighs heavily on his conscience, too. Amongst those who blame him the most are the head of operations of Pacifica, Leah Holmes, Bob's widow. Her reception is so frosty, she doesn't even bother to turn up for work. Friendlier faces are marine researcher Dr. Aguila, who is an aquanoid, a human modified to be able to breathe underwater, and Matthew's younger brother, Brett. Brett is also an engineer and has been designing and installing an impregnable undersea vault. This vault is where the gold supply from Fort Knox is to be transferred. Another accident occurs when an aquadozer smashes into the incomplete vault walls. Woody goes out in a sub to help, but gets trapped when the aquadozer crashes onto him. Dr. Aguila tries to rescue Woody. However, it is Matthews with a daring and dangerous plan that saves Woody's life. This accident freakishly mirrors the incident that killed Bob Holmes, and Leah doesn't fail to notice the similarities. Matthews' orders arrive. The east coast of the United States has been racked by earthquakes and natural disasters. The transfer of gold from Fort Knox must proceed immediately. But there's more. Fort Knox is also the repository of the most powerful and dangerous radioactive substance in the world, H-128. That too must be moved into Pacifica's vault ASAP. Matthews gets Brett to agree to have the vault finished in 24 hours. No one is happy about this turn of events. Not only is H-128 highly dangerous stuff, they don't want it in their city. But Matthews' plan to meet the deadline is pushing safety to the limit. No one likes it. But orders are orders, and the rockets carrying the H-128 are already on the way. Secretly, Brett is meeting with several co-conspirators. He has been engineering a vulnerability into his impregnable vault with an eye towards stealing a lot of gold. But now the stakes are higher. H-128 will make them even richer. Several of his co-conspirators are beginning to get cold feet. The first of the H-128 arrives, and we learn something new. H-128 must be surrounded by gold, or it will go critical and explode after 10 hours. The gold from Fort Knox has been keeping the H-128 stable, and now it will be placed within walls made of gold bricks in Pacifica's vault. Just as this delicate and critical operation begins, the president recalls Matthews to the White House. There's more good news! The cause of the earthquakes and natural disasters has been found. A small, hyperdense planetoid is sweeping through the solar system, causing the disruptions, and, of course, it's on a direct collision course for Earth. In fact, it's going to hit right near Pacifica in 7 hours. So you could say it's 7 hours to doomsday. Now, until you think having a planetoid strike in the middle of the Pacific Ocean near a major undersea city and a vault full of the most explosive material on Earth would be bad for everyone, but apparently it's a pretty good outcome. Striking the water means it won't be hitting a populated area of the land, and while yes, Pacifica will be destroyed, the impregnable vault will keep the H-128 safe. The folks at Pacifica will just need to finish putting the gold in H-128 in the vault and then evacuate in about 5 hours. Matthews must fly back to Pacifica, probably saying to himself, "This could have been a FaceTime call." Bob Holmes' father has never really believed Matthews was culpable and has been going through all the records of his son's accident and Woody's recent accident. He has discovered that the Aquadozer, in both cases, deliberately damaged the rescue repair subs. They were not accidents, and Matthews is blameless. Blame falls towards the Aquadozer driver, Quinn, who is one of Brett's co-conspirators. They used the accidents to arrange for the vulnerabilities in the vault. The hunt is on for Quinn, but time is running out. As the city evacuates, Matthews gets an idea. If he launches the Pacifica's ballistic nukes at the planetoid, he might divert it away from Earth. They cannot reach the president, so he takes the decision upon himself. They begin the calculations and the launch preparations. Brett has certified completion of sealing the vault and has sealed himself and Quinn inside while calling in their submarine for the heist. Dr. Aguila detects something in the vault and goes outside to investigate, finding the mystery sub up against the side of the vault. Matthews orders him to put an explosive on the sub, while the Admiral finds his way into the impregnable vault via an air vent, where he subdues Quinn, then finds his brother. They fight. Meanwhile, the missiles are launched, and the submarine explodes. In the fight, Brett falls into the H-128 and is killed. The missiles deflect the planetoid from the Earth, and Pacifica is saved. The end. Okay. So, City Beneath the Sea. What'd you think about City Beneath the Sea?
Well, I walked away with it being reminded of the fact that Irwin Allen at one time was the undisputed champion of the entertainment industry in the art of recycling everything.
Yes. Yes, he is. But you know something? I really, really like that in this show because this feels like Admiral Nelson's world
It does.
50 years on.
In fact, funny you should say that. When the president finally, when he makes contact with Matthews early on in this movie, the first thought that ran through my head was, oh my goodness, Admiral Nelson is stepping up. He's leveling up. He's now president of the United States. I mean, it felt like a continuation. I could believe that was actually President Nelson.
I know they never call him by name, and the
No.
timeline doesn't work because this is like 2053 or whatever, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea is like 1980s. But so he'd be a really old man. But it'd been funny if he had been President Nelson, and of course the flying sub. I mean, not just reuse.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't even try to disguise it. It just is Nelson's
there.
flying sub. Yeah. It just is, and that's fine. I mean, let's say this is the same world. It's a logical conclusion considering Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
I could accept it. I mean, I really could. Okay, so let's say that's, oh no, he's too young to be, is he too young to be, no, maybe he's not, to be Nelson's kid.
Oh, no, he's not. Yeah, no, he could easily be Nelson's son of Nelson.
Son of Nelson.
Son of Nelson.
Yeah.
Nelson's son.
Yeah. Nelson's son. That's it. But yeah, it could be Admiral Nelson's son, who is now president of the United States. I mean, I could go with that.
Yeah. So, but, we also know, and from one of our earlier discussions on Erwin Allen, probably Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea recently, that, he is such a notorious tightwad. It's not just the recycling of sets. He's really rough on some actors. And so the reason you see people showing up over and over again is they're the ones that can work with him. I mean, this is just filled with them. Doug and Tony from Time Tunnel, Stuart Whitman from Time Tunnel, Nelson,
Richard Wagner, Robert Wagner.
Robert Wagner.
He shows up in later Irwin Allen movies.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He is in some of the disaster films, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. And, we should call out his tache in this. It's hard for me to remember that in the old days, Robert Wagner was always the bad, snotty younger brother, evil guy. That was his role for years until he got what, It Takes a Thief.
I was going to say Takes a Thief. That's when he kind of turned hero.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of interesting because Robert Wagner is what you would consider classic leading man looks.
Yeah. I mean, he's suave. He's very classy, very well spoken. There's and he's a very handsome man. So there's absolutely nothing to suggest that he would be the dastardly villain.
I think it comes from, gosh, there was this movie. We could probably look it up. I think it's called The Mountain. And if
Hmm.
haven't seen this, I haven't seen this since I was 10 or something. My dad would have been watching it. And Robert Wagner was like this top ace mountain climber guy, and they had to do something, I don't know, rescue something off of a mountain, and nobody can do this mountain, and he's the younger brother, and he was really quite young. He was like the snotty little in it for himself kind of thing, basically kind of like this, only he was young. And so I kind of wonder if that carried over into his career, because for
No,
years,
probably.
whenever I'd see him, he would be this kind of, not exactly snotty, but definitely self-interested, I can get away on my charm,
Mm.
younger guy. And then as he matured into it, although at this point, let's face it, he's old enough that he shouldn't be playing the snotty younger brother. And he's not exactly snotty in this, but but yeah, as soon as I saw the tache, I'm like, oh, I'm conflicted here. It's Robert Wagner. He should be the good guy, but he's got that mustache.
Yeah.
He's got to be the bad guy.
That was that it's funny you should say that because I mean when he shows up and he comes off when we first meet him, he's one of the few that seems to be very supportive of Matthews.
Well, it is his brother.
Yeah. But I mean he's not acting like an absolute jerk to the guy.
And I will say, he when his brother confronts him in the vault at the end, he's like, "Come on, come in with me." Now,
Come with me, yeah.
I'm not saying that's the right thing to be doing, but I think it does show that he actually really does care about his brother.
Yeah, there's some kind of family loyalty that's at play here, which is okay. And yet at the same time, I mean, this movie does follow a lot of your typical Irwin Allen tropes.
Oh yeah.
And they're all over the place. And one of them is the good-looking guy, the good-looking secondary character. In this
Mm,
case, the brother. He's the traitor. He's the turncoat. He's the one who's in for it for himself. And as I watched it, I kept thinking, why am I not disappointed? Why am I not surprised?
mm.
I'm disappointed in the fact that I'm not surprised.
So I do want
There
to,
was zero surprise there.
yeah, I do want to throw something out here, and I admit I didn't get a chance to rewatch it for a variety of reasons. But Erwin Allen, when Star Trek was coming to the end of its second season and it was going to be canceled, Erwin Allen went to NBC and pitched City Beneath the Sea,
Oh.
and he prepared a 10 or an 11-minute. It's not exactly a pilot, but it is a acted and scripted
Mhm.
thing to show what
Yeah,
City Beneath the Sea would be like, and he's reusing uniforms, but he's hired real actors, Lloyd Bachner and Glenn Corbett and whatnot, to
right, and
be in this
that's
thing.
and I had seen that, and that's what intrigued me to watch this movie when you suggested it, because I remember having seen that some years ago and thinking, "Oh, that looks fascinating."
Yeah, so he pitched that at NBC, and NBC said, "No." And then or who knows, maybe NBC considered it, but then the letter writing campaign brought Star Trek back, and no room for two sci-fi shows. So they passed on City Beneath the Sea. So he came back a few years later, 71, and made this as a 2-hour TV movie with the idea of making it, trying to get it sold as a series, which when that didn't sell, he then immediately took it overseas and sent it out in theaters where it did okay. So to get, the money back and whatnot. So the reason I bring that up, one, is because it's part of the interesting history of this project. But you and I in particular, have talked a lot about pilotitis. This one does not actually suffer from that.
No, it doesn't.
This one suffers from let's cram everything in that we possibly can.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Typically what we say is pilotitis, or what I usually say is pilotitis, is if you take like the 90-minute special first episode, they spend at least an hour setting up the premise.
Mm-hmm.
And then they spend the last 30 minutes with, here's a sample of adventure of what might look like with this setup. But this one doesn't really follow that formula. And because they just keep packing stuff on.
And then there's more.
And then there's more. And then, in a way, I think it's to the detriment of the film.
It's too much.
It's too much. It is too much. And you kind of look at it and going, oh, I don't know if I'd want to watch a show like this. I mean, brain.
You're pretty tired, an hour in, and you're like, oh my God, can I take a break? Can these characters get a break? I mean, it's one complication after another. And I would be thinking if I were to watch this on a weekly basis, I'd burn out really fast.
I wonder if he did that because he knew he might turn around and sell it as a movie.
Maybe.
And also, I should point out that this film is pretty much on the cusp. So, if I've got my timeline correct here, he pitched the first 11-minute thing to NBC, and they didn't take it. So then he went on to create Land of the Giants. But by the time he's come back to City Beneath the Sea again, he is now done making TV series. He doesn't make any more after this point. So we're basically on the end of his Irwin Allen, Lost in Space, Time Tunnel, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea guy, and soon to be Irwin Allen, Master of Disaster. I think he only does one other thing, which is the Time Travelers, which John and I reviewed, which was basically his attempt to get Time Tunnel going again, because he always said Time Tunnel was his favorite show that he did. So, and that also did not fly. And then he became Mr. Poseidon Adventure. So, yeah, it's an interesting piece because it definitely looks like the 60s, and yet it also definitely looks a bit like the 70s in places. It's kind of like if you look at those Star Trek Phase 2 sample costumes and you look at them and go, yeah, they just somehow couldn't help but make 1970s look in there. I'm not even sure what it is. It's just I can look at it and go, I don't know, the flares or the something. And I see that in this one too.
Well, as I was watching, everything from wardrobe to production, set design, I kept thinking, this is what Disney's Tomorrowland looked like in the 1960s.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
I mean, that was the view of what the future was going to be. And who knows? I mean, we still haven't reached 2256 yet. We might still make that. Who knows?
Yeah. I will say, because we mentioned the year here, a couple things about the year. June 12th is actually apparently his birthday. So at the title up front, June 12th, 2053, it's just they picked his birthday. And I believe that's also the day that the Spindrift launched on Land of the Giants. I think it's Spindrift, isn't it? That's the name of the show.
I don't remember. I was never a fan of that show.
I have never had the opportunity really to get through it much. So it just has never been at the right time and right place. And I haven't managed. Someday. What I was going to say is that this is the first time, here we sit 2026, and I watched this episode or this movie, and it opens up in 2053, and an oil rig out in the ocean, high-tech looking fancy oil rig out in the ocean is destroyed. Although you can't tell it's an oil rig until they tell us later on.
Right.
And I look at that and I go, huh, this is the first time I've ever watched something like this. And I looked at that and said, you know something? They missed. I don't actually think we're going to be putting up high-tech oil rigs by 2053. I think
No.
we finally, I know that that's not a optimistic view based on the way the politics are, but the economics of renewables has now basically passed a tipping point, and you can only prop oil up so long before the economics of it just being cheaper to not oil are gonna take it. So I think we're on the way down. It's a remarkably hopeful statement from me, but I think it's true, and it's the first time I looked at that and I go, I don't actually think we're going to have oil rigs in 2053. But there you go.
Hmm.
Or at least we're not going to be needing to put new ones like that out there.
It did look pretty state of the art.
If I'm not mistaken, that is the model. I don't know if it was, I think it was actually made for because it's kind of a lame model. It's very lightweight. I think that was actually made for the 11-minute pitch thing,
Hmm.
because my recollection is that there is actually a story in that City Beneath the Sea little 11-minute pitch, and it ends with a hero whose name is also Matthews, but a different actor in a different rank. He's general, and a different traitor fighting it out on some sort of a platform, which ultimately blows
Yeah.
up. And that is the platform. So it has no bearing in this film whatsoever. It's absolutely pointless to open with it, and then just to refer to it obliquely later on. It's like, oh, we lost an oil rig a month or so ago. It's like, well, yeah, okay, fine. But it doesn't really, it has no real resonance. It's just like, well, we made it for the thing, so we might as well
Undisputed
use it.
champion of the world of recycling.
Yep. I'm sure that that's exactly what it was.
And to go back a little bit in terms of what you were saying, how this movie does not suffer from pilotitis, but it's just really crammed. I think you're onto something. Maybe was like the first 3 episodes.
That's what it feels like. You could have done this over 3 episodes.
And
3
Erwin
different
Allen,
stories,
because
yeah.
he hated the idea of these episodes not being used, these storylines not being used. So, hey, I'll just recycle them and cram them all into my one movie and make everybody's brains kind of melt from overdosing.
I mean, there isn't any similarity between an admiral in charge of nuclear missiles not being able to get hold of the president and deciding to take it upon himself to launch his nukes to save the world,
Yeah,
and any
yeah,
other thing
nothing familiar.
we've seen. Can't
Nothing
remember that.
familiar
Yeah.
in that.
Nope. Let's see. Now, let's have a I don't know. Let's talk about the H-128. So, the premise is that they've built this undersea vault in Pacifica, which Pacifica is, if you draw a line from basically the tip of the Baja and straight to Hawaii, right in the middle of it is
Mhm.
roughly where the coordinates that they give for the planetoid strike. Which, I mean, thank goodness it lands in the water.
Yeah.
We're going to
Something
come
this
back to that.
I know. Yeah. Okay, sure.
And so they've decided to move Fort Knox's, and presumably they've decided to move Fort Knox's gold there before the natural disasters started happening. It sounds like this is just like, and it really is about 1,000 miles from any active fault, roughly speaking. So it makes sense. I mean, it's got to be safer under the ocean. You got to submarines and all sorts of, much more hospitable. I get it. I totally get why you might think that's the place to move your gold, if indeed you still have any gold in your reserve and it isn't all being taken out by the Germans. And oh wait, that's just now here. Never mind. But that seems like it's been the plan. Well, we know it's part of the plan because that was what they were working on when Matthews left 8 months ago. Okay? And he's not seemingly disturbed in his New York office with the fact that the East Coast is being racked by earthquakes. So, yes. So, it's carefree life for the engineer making big infrastructure projects. So, all this seems pretty routine. This is not like, oh, this is an emergency. We got to move the thing out. So then they call him up and they send it back because now it is an emergency. Because of the earthquakes, we got to get this gold out of here. Not entirely sure why that is, but okay, we got to get the gold out of here. And I am purposely saying the gold. So they're going to now move the gold post haste to Pacifica. So they need to speed up getting the vault done. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. Then they get out there and they say, by the way, we also store all our H-128, the most deadly, dangerous, highly powerful radioactive material known to man, at Fort Knox, because the only substance that can dampen its radiation is gold. Surely, moving the H-128 must have been in the cards all along. Because if you take the gold out of Fort Knox, all you got's left is the H-128. So
Well, not to mention the fact
were
that
they always planning on doing this and just going to spring it on Pacifica? So, by the way, here comes the H-128.
Well, here's the kicker. Brett had been planning this for some time, this heist.
And he didn't know about the H-128. He was only after the gold.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he didn't know. But it sounds to me like Matthews didn't know. And if Matthews didn't know, and he was the one running the project up until 8 months ago, but I mean, it has to be, right? I mean, if you move all the gold from Fort Knox, and gold is the only thing that can contain H-128, and the H-128 was always destined to go to Pacifica, and they just didn't tell them. They were going to sneak it in on them at the last minute and go, by the way, you got to keep the H-128 here. And everybody's going to be like, you're not putting nuclear fuel in my city? I was like, oh yeah, too late. Yeah, we are. So, situation normal.
The shipment is already on the way.
Yeah, but it had to have been planned all along. It's just
I'm sure
they accelerated it. Yeah, that they've just accelerated it and decided, I got to tell you now, which is pretty crappy.
Well, the way it was done. Yeah.
Well, no, it was going to be done badly no matter how much because they didn't tell them.
Well, that's
they were going to do it. Yeah, there was. Yeah. So, So let's talk about that asteroid strike in the middle of the ocean. I mean, well, lucky us, it's going to hit the water.
Yeah, I did a little bit of reading. What would have happened if a 10-mile diameter neutron planetoid crashed in on surface of Earth? And holy snot, that would, I think that would like trigger that's a mass extinction event.
Oh yeah, and back in the day, and we'll call 1971 back in the day, but for the longest time, I think the popular perception was that if Earth got hit by an asteroid, it would be much better if it hit the ocean because there's nothing out there and it just, hit the water. And then subsequently, we figured out that that's like the worst thing that can happen. It hits the water is devastating to everybody everywhere because of the tsunamis that will come from it. The massive, massive, massive tsunamis and the boiling ocean and it will be far worse than if it struck on land. Either way, it's going to be bad. It's going to be far worse than this sounds like everybody's planning on surviving this. And ain't no way they're surviving this. And I don't mean the people of Pacifica. I mean everybody. Nobody's surviving this.
No, it's a mass extinction event.
Yeah.
And but again, kind of put yourself back into when this movie was being made. And this is something you have to kind of give it a hand wave because the science is not very good.
Or their research wasn't very good. I don't know if people probably knew it and it just wasn't in the, scientists knew this would be bad, but it wasn't in the
The general public didn't know.
in the general public. Nah. Yeah, you just think, well, thank goodness it didn't hit New York City. It's like, no, actually, New York City might be a good place because that's nice solid earth. One of the reasons that Chicxulub, so the Earth, the dinosaur killer asteroid, which is about 10 kilometers across, everything was bad about that. It came in at a sharp angle. It basically hit the ocean, but it hit, I think there's, shoreline kind of thing. And then it punctured the surface. It wasn't just like so that it was able to then let stuff well up and eject out that was from deep. It was really bad. And of course it would have done tsunamis and that would be smaller than this one. So, things survived. Humans might survive. I'm not saying that we wouldn't be clever enough to keep some people alive, even in an emergency situation, like where you're just not prepared for it. But yeah, it would be bad. It would be a bad thousands of years afterwards on this. But, and of course, there's one other thing that you're not taking into account, or at least they're not taking into account because they don't know. The impregnable vault, which will be perfectly safe. Okay, that's debatable, but let's say it was. Let's say the design spec for the impregnable vault was good enough that an asteroid strike near Pacifica would level Pacifica, but the vault would remain intact. One, I'm thinking that the vault would probably be, shook around a bunch and maybe those gold bricks would fall down and maybe the H-128 wouldn't necessarily be surrounded by gold on two sides or, three sides, not top and bottom. And on top of that, it's not impregnable. It has a very pregnable fault in it intentionally. So it would have collapsed. If the laser cutter can get through it, then the impact would have busted into it. The H-128 would have come out, would have all exploded, blown up the planet anyway. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, but wasn't the fact that the laser cutter worked, wasn't that because of Brett's alteration of the design of it?
Yes.
But that wasn't the plan.
No, it wasn't planned, but I'm just saying they don't know about it. They think the vault is impregnable, but it is not. So when it did strike, the vault would have failed. And so they still would have died. Even if they had survived because of the asteroid strike, then the H-128 blowing up in such massive quantities probably would have, finished the job off. So, yeah, best laid plans of mice and men. That's just one more thing. And I'm really surprised that they didn't mention that because that's just one more layer of, we got a problem.
Well, like I said, they didn't know. Well,
see, that would have been a better excuse for Matthews to launch the missiles. It's like, no, we cannot. Now that we know that the damage is here, of course, he didn't know the damage was there until after he had launched the missiles. But, justification is like, actually, no, we'd all been dead. Yep. I was very surprised by how very much Man from Atlantis, Dr. Aguilar was.
Yes.
I'm like, did they see that and think, we can do this? I mean, the swimming, the talking underwater. I have to ask, did you notice that there was some sort of electronics or some sort of thing shoved in his butt crack in his swimwear?
No.
It was like a. So if you ever watch Ultra 7 or the really early Ultraman, they have like battery packs stuck in their suits and you can see them when they move. They're about the size of, I don't know, a deck of cards, maybe something like that. And they're back on his back shoulders and they're for like lighting up the eyes. This guy had something shoved in the back of his swim trunks.
I didn't catch that.
can't figure out what it would be for because they wouldn't light him and they don't need a real mic. So, and then, why would they go to that level of detail when he's got his hand communicator, which you just, it's just a prop. You don't run it to a battery pack and shove it down the back of his pants. It was just odd. I saw that and I'm like, that's what? Why?
I
Maybe
have no idea.
maybe it's a harness or something so they can pull him out real fast and we don't. I
Maybe.
don't know.
I'd have to
But
watch it again in order to be able to see it and see if I can make some kind of guess, but I had no idea that was there.
yeah, I do think that this setup, City Beneath the Sea, and an Aquanoid is a much better setup than Man from Atlantis.
Oh, without question. This made sense.
Yeah, the only thing that didn't make sense is, were there any other Aquanoids that we didn't
Well,
see?
he
There must
did
be.
yeah, the doc he did make reference to his people,
He
and I
was talking about
kind of
scientists.
I don't know. I kinda got the feeling that well, yeah, I suppose in retrospect, it may seem like that, but when I first saw that or first heard that line, I kept thinking, "Oh, maybe there are other Aquanoids." I mean, it would only make sense to have others, don't have one.
Well, I mean, he could be the first, but then I don't know that you'd go around going, well, because I'm an Aquanoid, as if Aquanoid is a thing. You know, it does sound like he's a group of people, part of a group. Yeah. But yeah, in a city where you need people to go outside and do stuff but you can work indoors, and it's like, no, it makes so much more sense than, and in a world where air breathing humans have something to do, not
Mhm.
just sit around in the sub and wait for him to come back, which is all they ever do in Man from Atlantis. Yeah. Let's see. I think I mentioned everybody. Oh no, I forgot to mention Chip. Chip Morton was in there somewhere too. He was almost like a walk-on part. Pretty sure I saw him in the control room. I think the second in command on the Seaview as well.
Oh, I didn't catch him.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was him. Kind of thing. I don't think he had a line. 18-minute. All right. 18-minute flight from Fort Knox to Pacifica. 18-minute rocket flight. Now, we know where Pacifica is.
Mhm.
We know where Fort Knox is. Presumably, they haven't moved Fort Knox because they did say it was still on the East Coast. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, it is pretty fast.
I mean, I'm not saying a missile couldn't make the distance, but then what do you do with the missile? I mean, surely it takes more than 18 minutes to dock. I mean, it's got to reach the ocean. It's got to come down into the water. It's got to, I don't know, dock? What does it do? I mean, I'm having trouble picturing this rocket, right? Because we never see any of the rockets. All we ever see is submarines. They're like evacuating all the people on submarines. And you're like,
Well, we do get one quick glimpse, and once again, king
stock
of
footage.
the stock yeah, he used stock footage. Erwin used stock footage of an Apollo launch.
Yeah, but that doesn't help us when it comes to arriving at Pacifica.
No, but if we're gonna use that as our basis, that, "Oh, this is what they're using to send, to send all of this gold," then that's a mighty big piece of machinery that's gotta, go into the ocean, go down towards Pacifica, and that makes for some very problematic,
I don't
engineering.
think they were shipping the gold that way. So I think my understanding, because it was confusing, because there's a question about why they don't ship the H-128 and the gold at the same time. And he said, well, the gold is too heavy, implying you wouldn't want to launch gold in a rocket, and that you've got 10 hours anyway to get the H-128 from one gold spot to another. So I kind of got the impression that the gold was coming by some other means and had already partially been filling up the vaults before they started sending the H-128. So they arranged their little gold maze down there and they started rocketing the H-128 in. And then, which, I'm glad they don't have any Katos anymore because that would be bad. But yeah, it's like I really want to know what the heck they were doing. And then, do the rockets fly back, or are they disposable once they reach Pacifica? You just push it off the dock and let it sink to the bottom? Yeah.
Well, it is 2256. I think they're asking us to make a lot of assumptions here.
I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen those. I also, obviously, even without or maybe with a rocket, I don't know. It's pretty easy for, if I'm not mistaken, it was 11:55 in Pacifica, and the president wanted him there for a meeting at 1:00.
Bit of a problem there.
Well, yeah, a couple problems there with that whole time zones thing, but also, was he able? Let's pretend like they were stupid enough and just forgot about time zones, and they really meant 70 minutes. You got to be there in 70 minutes. Is it possible? Also, why not just do it over the phone? What? I have a complaint about the speed of plot in this.
Thank you, Joe Straczynski.
That I'm sending you back to Pacifica. Why? I'm sending sealed orders. Okay, you're sending sealed orders. I don't want to go back to Pacifica. Well, I'm sending you to Pacifica. You're the only guy. You're the guy, and you'll get it in your sealed orders. And so then we go through, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of this
I need
movie.
you to come to DC.
Well, no. Let's talk about the orders first. It took a long time for those sealed orders to get to Pacifica.
I know.
Longer for them to get to Pacifica than it did for him to get to Pacifica.
I found that a bit hard to believe myself.
And then all the sealed orders was a video recording of the president at his desk saying, here's what the deal is. You got to do this thing. But think about it. In that same scene, he could have picked up the phone and called the president and talked to him on the thing and said, so you want me to do this thing? Yes, that's right. Follow the instructions that I could have just called you about. I could have told you on the call.
Because it certainly wasn't top secret stuff, because what does Matthews do? He turns around and he tells
everybody.
He's telling everybody what's going on. This is why we have to do this. So it's not like that these orders needed to be sealed in the first place. Hell, he could have told Matthews when Matthews was still in his office in New York.
Yes. I mean, surely they have an encrypted call, if nothing else, if they're just worried about that. Or they could have waited till he got to Pacifica, and then he gets to his desk and he says, okay, call me, and here's why you're back. I mean, all sorts of reasons. But the fact that they spend an awful lot of time, which is part of the plot of him coming back, and everybody's like, well, why are you back? Why are you back? Kill enough people here, Matthews?
I'm sorry, the president ordered me. Well, I am pissed off at you because the president ordered you to come back. It's not my fault. I don't care. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of really weird attitude.
Yeah, but they had to do that because, well, I don't know. After then he got his orders. And then after he got his orders, it didn't make any difference anyway. They were still mad at him about it. It's like, well, okay. But, there was that air of mystery. Why are you back? It's like, I didn't really care. But yes, then he gives him like, okay, you got to get this thing done. And okay, we've got this highly dangerous process that you sent me here for because I'm the only guy that's going to be able to make this work. And then the second I get it running, you're like, now get back to Washington for a meeting which appeared to be 3 minutes long for a scientist to tell him, yeah, we got a planetoid and it's going to smack the planet. So you better get back there and get this taken care of. It's like, I really think my time could have been, even if this is a very short flight, even if it really truly is only an hour for him to get to Washington, D.C.
It's not worth
It's not worth an hour.
No.
Not worth an hour. And yeah, that hurt. That really hurt. I mean, yes, everybody's like, again, it's kind of, they're blaming Matthews. It's like, what, you're leaving us now? It's like, I'm just a yo-yo here. The president pulls my string and I go up and down and up and down, and you're complaining to me about this.
This is one of these story ideas that, as you pointed out, it's a lot of this is just not very well thought out. And I think the sole purpose was merely to create a sense of tension and to also deliver to the viewer at the time this idea that, oh my gosh, this must be really serious if this is what's going on, and just kind of spoon feed the audience all of this rubbish when, we can take a look at it and say, that makes absolutely zero sense that they would do it this way. You know,
Yeah.
uh, but that's all it was. It was simply to serve I don't know how to describe it. The story's atmosphere, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was supposed to show us that we live in an age where you can travel from darn near Hawaii to New York in an hour, or to Washington, D.C. in under an hour, and still get to the president's office in time. I don't know. It may have been part of the world building, but it just really was. I'm almost wondering if it was done. And even then, I was wondering if it was done to keep Colbert and James Darren apart because they didn't like each other.
Oh,
The
I
two,
did not know that.
they didn't get along. Robert Colbert was a professional actor, and James Darren was not.
He was a
And
lounge singer.
he was a young man, and he was not so serious about his. At least that's the way it's told. I wasn't there, but Colbert didn't really appreciate James Darren's attitude and behavior offset. So they apparently did not see eye to eye on many things on the show. So maybe they did it so that they could have them not in the same room, but doing it by video call would have accomplished the same thing, because they just recorded at different times, and Colbert doesn't need to be in this. Yeah, it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. I absolutely adored the Maze of Gold.
That
I
was
wish,
cool.
I
I
do
would love
wish
to
they'd
see more of
managed to
that.
get better paint.
Mm.
That was pretty lame gold paint that they had on it. It was very clearly bricks painted. Well, it was very clearly, I don't know, Z-brick or something painted to look like bricks, because it wasn't real bricks either, because at one point the two men are fighting and they smack up against a pallet of gold bricks and the whole thing shudders under its weight, under their impact.
Yeah, yeah, that's all it did.
I think maybe you could have done something to either not, maybe a retake on that one, or maybe you have a whole bunch of guys hiding behind it, propping it up so it doesn't move as much, or something. But it really did look like wobbly set. Like gold, okay, gold. Let's see. So story was apparently by Irwin Allen, but the screenplay was by John Meredith Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners of this will probably recognize that name. He was the writer of several Star Trek episodes: The Changeling, Patterns of Force, Elan of Troyes, That Which Survives. Which, hey, Patterns of Force, good job. The
Mm-hmm.
others,
Oh, I didn't mind them.
I don't mind. I don't like Elan of Troyes.
Yeah, she was kind of, but I mean, it was an okay episode. I actually very much enjoyed That Which Survives.
So, well, it's got Lee Merriweather in it, who was not in this, and she's an alumni of Time Tunnel. Why was Lee Merriweather not in this? I'm
Good question.
deeply disappointed there.
Yeah, because we did have Whit Bissell.
Yes, we did have the general. So, yeah. Also, and this is because the name John Meredith Lucas, I remember that, and I thought, God, I thought he did a whole lot more on Star Trek. Well, apparently director too. Ultimate Computer, The Enterprise Incident, and also Elan of Troyes. So the only writer to have directed their own episode on Star Trek. And during season 2, producer for part of the show, including Elan of Troyes, Gamesters of Triskelion, and a piece of the action. So
Elan of Troyes is season 3.
Is it? Well, he was apparently a producer on that, but yeah, God, it feels like it. It could be. It does definitely feel like a bad one. But so therefore season 3.
Yeah, but he directed one of my favorites, The Ultimate Computer.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's definitely a good one. And it's well directed too.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, also writer, Night Gallery, Planet of the Apes, the TV series, $6 Million Man, Logan's Run, and he was an uncredited writer on The Implant People, The Star Lost.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's interesting how you get those things listed and they go, oh, he's uncredited. I even found it on IMDb. It's like, but how do we know? Or is that just somebody thought he was? I don't know.
I
Anyway,
don't know. I have no idea. I got some friends who
I don't
work
want
in
to
the
blame
industry.
him. I don't
No,
want to blame him for that.
no.
But yeah. Oh, yeah. Another piece that did not play well in my mind was so Matthews arrives and the civilian administrator comes to see him, who also happens to be part of this conspiracy, although nothing really comes of that. He comes to see him, and Matthews is kind of sounding him out as to whether or not if there's going to be a problem with him being there, basically, with the people. Do they resent me? Do they anything? And so he's imagining here that Matthews has, designed and built this place and was the administrator, was the commander of it up until 8 months ago. And then he comes back, he asks the civilian administrator, I'd like you to give me a report. And he's like, okay, well, I can give you a report. He said, no, it'll do in the form of a tour. Meet me at 9:00. And I'm like, why would you need a tour?
You ran the facility. You don't
Yeah,
need a tour,
it's
and
just
you haven't been
an
away that long.
opportunity to give it to the audience. But it doesn't work. In Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, we have the guests aboard the submarine and they're the senator and the psychiatrist, and we have the opportunity to give them a tour of the submarine for the audience. But here you are bringing back the man who designed the place, and he's going, yeah, it'd be good if you gave me a tour. It's like, the tour would have been better if it had been concentrating on things that he wouldn't know about.
Yeah, but they didn't say that.
They didn't really. There was that education center. He said, oh, this is the education center where we can take care of kids from age 1 to 3 or whatever it was. And maybe that was new, but they didn't say that. And again, that was
I think it's
poorly,
implied.
I think that was poorly shoehorned into the show. And then it wasn't big enough of a tour to really give me the, wow, this is a cool place. I think they managed to do that without doing the city tour. Just by mentioning, like, we've got desalination plants and we're producing protein and we've got these research labs. You're like, okay, got it. I got it. This is a thing that we can explore later. And I don't think they needed to do that. H-128 is pretty. I mean, wow. Wow. I want my radioactive material to be a big chunk of rock that's glowing and sparking and sending fire off at all.
It was pretty far out.
That was much. That was a bit much. That may have been a bit too far.
And I kept thinking, I don't care if the fact that you've got this, well, when they're shipping it, when they're putting into place, they've only got these 2 walls on either side as they're moving. And I'm thinking, well, okay. I mean, I don't know. It's got to be really bad if it goes supercritical in, was it 10 hours? They said
10 hours without gold. Yeah.
that it goes supercritical, and anything that touches it immediately dies, as we see what happened to Brett. I mean, they even throw a pen
Yep.
earlier
Over
on, and it's over the wall, and it's just completely incinerated. And I'm thinking, okay, well, when they're shipping it, you've got open areas on the sides, open area on the top, and even after you surround it with gold, it's not really surrounded by gold.
No.
Not completely.
So I got the impression that the mass of the gold in proximity was acting as a dampener.
I think that's what they want us to believe.
Yeah, it's not that the radiation is being blocked by it. It's that by having the gold down there, it's basically dimming its output down. But, one, I'm not really convinced that that's good science. 2, if that were true, then Brett probably wouldn't have died. Certainly the pen probably wouldn't have been vaporized because, well, the pen wasn't really being damped down at the time. So
No, but he would not have been that. He wouldn't have died right away, because if it is dampening the effects of the H-128, then there would not have been enough juice, if you will, to kill him immediately.
I guess he did touch it, so maybe that's a difference, but I'm
It still
having some
doesn't
trouble
work.
with it, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, the
no,
science still doesn't work.
it doesn't really work. Now, I will say this, it's extremely stupid, and I'm gonna try to reason it out anyway, because
Oh, good luck.
science. Not that. When they were transporting it, and they had the 2 mobile gold painted,
Mm,
right, shields on either side of it, even though it's completely exposed in the front and the back. I mean, I don't think that would be enough gold mass to dampen it. Who knows?
mm-mm.
Maybe it only takes a little bit. Maybe they're like Cybermen, wave a little gold leaf from a one of those fancy cakes at it and they die. I don't know. But they were gold, but of course they were mesh. But microwaves, right? You can see inside your microwave because
Mhm.
the size of the holes are engineered to be a size that prevents the wavelength of the microwave radiation from passing out through it. That's how that works. If you know the wavelength of the radiation, you can make a metal grid or a grid of a substance that you could see through, but will break up the radiation. So they could have something like that, but the stage direction was not done well enough to make me think that everybody was making sure they were on the right position behind those barriers, because they're all pushing them around and there were people who were basically getting the thing pointed at them from the front and back. So, but there could be a way to make a gold mesh stop it, but I think it didn't work. But I'll put it out there that it's not impossible. Let's see. I also do want to put a couple things out here because again, this is aren't we looking into the future and wondering how mankind is going? So we hear Matthews is working on 3 different projects. Now, I'm not going to do them in the order they did them in, but one of them is the Peruvian Dam. Okay. You know, unfortunately, we live in an age where we'll never get another hydroelectric dam, my opinion,
Mhm.
unfortunately, that we'll never get another because you'll screw something up. You'll screw some animal, some plant, some ecosystem, which is true. I'm not saying it isn't true because you've built a dam for whatever reason. So 2053, current timeline, yeah, I don't think anybody's building a dam in Peru. One. The Pikes Peak Tramway. Like, okay. It's like, that that's just amusing. Sure, why not? Everybody loves a good tramway. Fine. And the Alaska Reclamation Project. That one's the one that's so loaded. Why does Alaska need to be reclaimed? Reclaimed for
Mm.
what? Well, what does that mean? Does that mean cut down all those forests so you can plant more corn to make ethanol? Or what? You know, what is the
I I don't know. That's a really good question. I'd be really interested to know what the writer, whoever it was who came up with that little bit, was thinking, unless they thought, "Ooh, this just sounds nice."
Yeah, well, in 1970s, 60s, Alaska was considered pretty much a wasteland. And I use that word with precision. It's like it's a bunch of ground that we're not getting much use out of. It's wasted.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can see them like turning it into metropolises and farming communities and all sorts of stuff that they're working on. I mean, if they can build a city under the sea, they can build a city under a dome, for example, that keeps out the bears, which are probably all dead, but keep out the bears or keep out the cold or whatever. So, but yeah, I just thought about that. And it's like Alaska, that phrase, the Alaska Reclamation Project, that's just loaded. That's just loaded. Let's reclaim that. Let's reclaim Alaska from the wilderness that it is. Um, I don't know if I have anything else.
Oh, the one well, sometimes props are there just for the sake of props, even though they make absolutely zero sense. When Woody is brought in after his accident and they take him into what I can only imagine is a medical bay.
Oh, yeah.
Medical-
Okay.
Oh my word. What was that piece of equipment that he got hooked up to?
That looked awfully familiar. The part where the stuff was turning, that looked like it was a piece of real medical equipment, but not
It was.
some
It
sort
was.
of
In fact, I've actually seen that used in dialysis machines.
okay, I thought it might be something to do with taking fluids in and pushing fluids back
Yeah,
in and out. Yeah,
and
it's a
it's still
pump.
used today.
Yeah, that was what they said they were doing to him was decompression.
Yeah,
Well, that's an interesting
but
way to do decompression, but
it
okay.
was, and then there's this thing, this big container with this blue fluid that, as I looked at, I kept thinking, what is that supposed to be?
Was that supposed to be a stomach? It
That's
looked
what
a
I
bit
was
like
thinking.
a
It looked to
stomach.
me, it looked like a stomach and digestive system.
Yeah, that was an interesting prop. Clearly, that was one they had to come up with for the show. So they hired some sort of medical pump and strung together some sort of science display that they had and put blue goo in it instead of like food goo, and it was
And the purpose that it served, what was its function?
it was doing decompression. That was its purpose. It was the
Yeah, well, I
decompression.
gathered that. I would have liked some explanation. I mean, I kept staring at this thing, and I know this is one of these things because even filmmakers, that were making movies into the 80s and 90s, they'd see something and say, "Oh, this looks great. What does it do? Oh, I don't know, but it looks great. I got to use it."
Yeah, it's I felt that prop was on the cheap. But remember, this is the year 2053. Any sufficiently advanced technology
Oh
is
my God, it's
indistinguishable from
indistinguishable
magic.
from magic.
So, yeah, it's the magic blue stomach goo.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It's an aquanoid specialty. So, yeah, yeah. Why were they pumping the atmosphere? Let's go with that one. Why were they pumping the
Oh God.
atmospheres up in there?
Well, I think the purpose was to prevent the sub from flooding.
He was trying to force the water back out.
Force the water back out.
I kind of got that impression, and I would have been a little happier if there'd been any evidence that the water level had changed at any point in the course of that scene. But because it didn't really seem
Instead,
to be going up or going down.
all we're doing is we're going to give Woody a really bad case of the bends when they rescue him.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. All right. Well, if there isn't anything else.
Well, all I got to say is, City Beneath the Sea. It's cheesy. It's
Mhm,
predictable.
mhm,
It is brainless science fiction.
mhm.
But
I'd have watched it.
when asked, pardon?
I'd have watched it if it was a series.
Me too.
Yep.
It was strangely enjoyable. It's horribly dated. I still found it kind of fun to watch, and for 1971 and for being heavily, recycled, I thought it had some decent production values,
Yeah.
especially, that came from the mind of Erwin Allen. It, it, I could almost call this a guilty pleasure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. There are so many shows that they could have made series, and our childhoods would have been so much better if we
Very
just had more
much.
shows.
I
And
would have
then if this is
preferred.
gone, Man from Atlantis never would have happened.
Yeah, exactly. And to be perfectly honest, I would have rather watched this than Man from Atlantis any day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, though, Man from Atlantis did look better. Filmatic
Mm,
filmatically. This
yeah,
definitely had a cheap 60s
I know,
Irwin
but there
Allen look
was,
to it.
but and maybe that's what works for me because as I was, especially when we're getting a really good look at Pacifica for the first time. I mean, this was really speaking to my inner child. I was reliving childhood memories in a way. I mean, even though I never watched this before as a kid, there was just something very familiar about it. And when we see the oil rig blow up, and then when we see Pacifica, I was actually being reminded of some of Jerry Anderson's Super Marionation stuff.
You're probably being reminded of some alien city you saw in Lost in Space, which was the same prop reused.
Well, there probably, but at the
Right.
same time, it still felt, as I was watching this, it still felt kind of, Derek Meddings type.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was something very familiar
It
with
had
that.
the
And
feel of
it was
his
almost,
stuff, yeah.
it was almost comforting to see that. I enjoyed it. I mean, and again, we're talking about this retro futuristic look that we all grew up with, being told this is what the future's going to be like. It's going to be far out, along with your flying cars, which we're still waiting for. And I watched this and I kept thinking, that's my 1960s view of the future I'm supposed to have now. Where is it? I don't have it, but oh boy, am I really enjoying watching this.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I'm glad they got rid of the tension. I did not care about the whole everybody's mad at Matthews thing. That plot line just didn't really. Anyway. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
And listeners, I do hope you'll join us all again next time on Fusion Patrol. This has been Fusion Patrol. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, we hope you'll consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com/fusionpatrol or patreon.com/fusionpatrol. For our Patreon subscribers, we're currently running a special series on Babylon 5. Come join the conversation and find other content at fusionpatrol.com. You can contact us on social media, where our Fediverse address is @podcast@fusionpatrol.com or by email at feedback@fusionpatrol.com. Fight the Future by Amberwolf is our theme music. You can find more from Amberwolf at bandcamp.com. This has been a Lone Locust production.